Claire Hayes, a 34-year-old interior architect from Brooklyn, had barely stepped into Kyoto airport after a 14-hour flight when she saw 42 missed calls. The final message from her older sister contained only one sentence: "The kids are at your place." Claire froze in the middle of the arrivals hall. She had not yet felt the chill of early winter or even looked toward Nathan, who was waiting in the distance, when the phone screen pulled her back to her locked apartment on the other side of the world. The night before her flight, Claire had still been sitting at her drafting table, reviewing documents for the restoration of a historic wooden hotel in Kyoto. For 4 years, she had worked without stopping. During the day, she designed spaces for clients. At night, she took on additional technical drawings to save money for the trip she had always dreamed of. She had just pulled her suitcase into the middle of the room when her mother called. Helen said Natalie had an emergency, and Claire needed to watch Logan and Chloe for 5 days. Her voice was cold, as though everything had already been decided. Claire asked what the emergency was. Helen replied that Natalie had to leave on a business trip. When Claire said she was flying to Japan the following morning, her father, Arthur, snatched the phone away. He told her that family came first, plane tickets could be purchased again, and her sister needed help. Claire had heard those words throughout her entire childhood. Family came first when she skipped her graduation exhibition to babysit Natalie's children. Family came first when she used the money meant for her apartment deposit to pay off her sister's credit card debt. Every mistake Natalie made somehow became Claire's responsibility. She looked at her suitcase, her passport, and the confirmation email from the Japanese architecture group. They had chosen her as the lead consultant, even though many people still saw her as nothing more than the quiet woman who fixed everyone else's mistakes. Then Claire said no. She did not raise her voice. She did not explain. She said only one word. Helen burst into tears. Arthur became furious. Natalie texted Claire that she was selfish and would regret it. Claire turned off her phone. At 6 the next morning, while a car was taking her to the airport, Natalie arrived outside Claire's Brooklyn apartment with 9-year-old Logan and 6-year-old Chloe. The hallway camera recorded her setting 2 backpacks on the floor and telling the children that their mother was only going to take a shower and would be back soon. Then she entered the elevator carrying a large suitcase. 10 minutes passed. Then 30. Cold rain struck the window at the end of the hallway. Chloe began to cry. Logan removed his thin jacket and wrapped it around his younger sister, even though he was trembling too. He knocked repeatedly on Claire's apartment door. A security guard found the 2 children almost an hour later. He called the police and Child Protective Services. In Kyoto, Nathan opened the security footage on his computer. When Claire saw Logan holding his sister in front of the locked door, she felt as though her chest were being crushed. But before the pain could turn into guilt, her phone rang again. Her mother screamed that Claire had destroyed the family. Her father accused her of using a luxurious trip as an excuse to avoid her responsibilities. No one asked where Natalie was. No one asked how a mother could abandon 2 children in a freezing hallway. Claire looked through the airport windows. For the first time, she understood that if she returned home, she would not be saving Logan and Chloe. She would only be saving Natalie from the consequences of her actions. Claire wiped away her tears and told the social worker that she would cooperate fully. For the first time, Claire did not rush home to clean up her family's disaster. And that decision opened the door to a truth far greater than anyone could have imagined. The investigation began before Claire even had the chance to leave Kyoto Airport. Sarah Jenkins, the caseworker from Child Protective Services, called her from New York. Sarah's voice was calm but firm. She needed to know whether Claire had ever agreed to care for Logan and Chloe, whether she knew Natalie intended to bring the children to her apartment, and whether the signature on the authorization form found beneath the doormat belonged to Claire. Claire answered no to all 3 questions. On the other end of the line, Sarah remained silent for several seconds. That silence made Claire understand that this was no longer a family argument. A boundary had been crossed, and this time, Natalie could not erase the evidence with tears or accusations. Natalie told the police that she had to travel to Chicago to attend an important design conference. She insisted that her company had arranged the trip months earlier and that leaving the children with Claire had simply been a misunderstanding. But the first lie collapsed that same afternoon. Sarah called the design firm where Natalie worked. The human resources manager confirmed that Natalie had been fired 2 weeks earlier after money disappeared from a charity project fund. There was no conference in Chicago. No business trip had been approved. Natalie's employee access card had been deactivated on the day she left the company. Claire sat beside the hotel window, watching Kyoto's rooftops pass through a veil of light rain. Every new piece of information felt like another section of wall being removed, exposing the rotten structure her family had spent years trying to cover with paint. Nathan did not comfort her with pleasant words. He opened his computer and examined the traces Natalie had left behind on social media and in emails Claire forwarded to him. Within hours, he found a deleted photograph that was still stored in the temporary cache of a photo-sharing account. Natalie was standing outside the lobby of an exclusive resort in Bali. Beside her was Julian Vance, a wealthy construction contractor Claire had once met at an architecture industry event. Julian was married. In the photograph, Natalie wore new sunglasses, held a glass of champagne, and leaned against his shoulder as though she did not have 2 children sitting in a freezing hallway. The flight records showed that Natalie had traveled in business class. The hotel room had been prepaid for 5 nights. The amount was almost identical to the money missing from the company's charity fund. Claire stared at the screen for a long time. She no longer felt surprised. She only felt a cold exhaustion spreading down her spine. Then, Sarah sent her a copy of Natalie's bank statement. A month earlier, Claire had transferred $2,000 because Natalie claimed Logan needed a tablet and educational software. Claire still remembered the tremble in her sister's voice as she said Logan was falling behind his classmates and would lose his chance if Claire refused to help. The money had never been used for school. It had become the deposit on a designer handbag, but the hardest blow came from Vance Miller, Natalie's former husband. For years, Natalie had claimed that Vance abandoned the children, refused to pay child support, and wanted nothing to do with Logan and Chloe. The Hayes family believed her. Claire had repeatedly covered school fees, medical expenses, and rent because she thought the children had no one else. Vance provided complete bank statements. He had paid child support on time every month. He had repeatedly asked to see his children, but Natalie always claimed they were sick, attending extra classes, or did not want to see their father. She had even blocked his number on Logan's phone. Claire examined every transaction, feeling as though someone were peeling away the layers of memory inside her mind. Every time Natalie cried. Every time Helen accused Claire of being heartless. Every time Arthur said family came first. All of it had been built upon a story deliberately constructed to deceive them. The final piece of evidence was a message Natalie had sent to her best friend. The easiest way to get money is to mention the kids. Claire will make herself feel guilty before I even have to ask a second time. Claire read the sentence 3 times. She did not cry. She simply straightened her back, saved every document, and sent everything to Sarah. For the first time in her life, Claire stopped asking herself what she had done wrong. She began asking how long Natalie had been lying, and the answer slowly emerging was more terrifying than anyone had ever imagined. The envelope found beneath the doormat outside Claire's apartment changed the entire direction of the investigation. Inside was a medical authorization form bearing the name Claire Hayes. According to the document, she had agreed to take responsibility for Logan and Chloe for 5 days and had authorized doctors to provide emergency treatment if necessary. At the bottom of the page was Claire's signature, but Claire had never seen the document before. Sarah emailed her a scanned copy while Claire was standing in the hallway of her hotel in Kyoto. One glance was enough for her to recognize that Natalie had tried to imitate her handwriting. The first letter was stretched too far. The final stroke trembled slightly, as though the person signing had paused to remember how Claire usually wrote her name. This had not been an impulsive decision. Natalie had planned it. She knew Claire would refuse. She knew the apartment would be locked. She knew Claire would be out of the country for several days. So Natalie created a forged document to make her younger sister the default guardian and shift all legal responsibility onto her. Claire stared at the page for a long time. Natalie had used her name before to book hotel rooms. She had used Claire's address to apply for credit cards. She had lied and claimed that Claire had agreed to repay a debt. But this was the first time Natalie had forged her signature in order to abandon 2 children. The police immediately added document forgery to the case file. Natalie's former company also handed over all records connected to the missing funds. The wall of lies began collapsing from every direction at once. In New York, Arthur found a stack of bank documents hidden inside one of Helen's drawers. He discovered that his wife had withdrawn $18,000 from their retirement savings over the course of 8 months. Helen had used the money to pay Natalie's credit card debt, overdue rent, and a personal loan taken out in Natalie's name. Arthur called Claire in the middle of the night. His voice was hoarse. He asked whether she had known about it. Claire said she had not, but she was not surprised. Helen grabbed the phone and immediately began defending herself. She said Natalie was going through a difficult time. She said any mother would have to save her child. Then she blamed Claire for making everything more serious simply because she refused to return home. This time, Arthur did not remain silent. He asked how Helen could take money from their retirement account without telling him. He asked how many years she had been covering for Natalie. He asked whether love was still love when it was used to protect someone from every consequence. The argument continued until morning. In the end, Arthur left the house. He moved the remaining money into a separate account, rented a small apartment, and said he needed time to reconsider a marriage built upon far too much silence. Helen called Claire dozens of times. Claire did not answer. She sent only a brief message saying that she would continue cooperating with Sarah and would not return early. That decision shocked the entire family more than anything else. They were accustomed to Claire appearing whenever there was a crisis. She was always the one who booked the earliest flight, transferred money the fastest, and apologized before she even knew whether she had done anything wrong. But this time, Claire sent the investigators the entire message: history, money transfer receipts, security footage, and forged documents. She hid nothing. She did not reshape the story to protect Natalie. She did not ask Sarah to reduce the consequences. Meanwhile, Vance Miller completed the process of taking Logan and Chloe into his care. His home had 2 small bedrooms that had been prepared for them years earlier, even though Natalie had always told everyone that he did not care about his children. On the day the children were brought to his house, Logan stood outside the door for a long time. He asked whether his father truly wanted them to stay. Vance knelt down, wrapped both children in his arms, and told them that he had never stopped waiting for that day. During a video call, Claire watched Chloe sleeping on the sofa, still clutching her brother's jacket in one hand. She felt pain, but she no longer felt the urge to rush back to New York. She understood that returning to solve everything would only teach Natalie a dangerous lesson. That if she created a disaster large enough, Claire would always appear. For the first time, Claire chose to stop carrying the consequences for someone else. And when she stepped back, the people who had depended on her sacrifices were forced to stand before the truth on their own. 3 months after the children were placed with Vance, Natalie began the first job that no one in the family could do for her. Every morning, she put on a gray reflective vest, stood inside a construction materials warehouse, and counted every box of tiles, every coil of electrical wire, and every sheet of plywood. The work was repetitive, exhausting, and completely different from the luxurious hotels she had once shown off on social media. Natalie's phone no longer received messages from her mother offering to transfer money. There were no more calls from Claire asking how much she needed. There was no one left to pay her credit card bills before the bank sent a warning. Under the terms of her supervision agreement, Natalie had to live in supported housing, attend behavioral management classes, and surrender all of her income toward gradually repaying her debts. She was forbidden from approaching Logan and Chloe without authorization until she completed a parental responsibility assessment. For the first time, every consequence remained exactly where it had been created. Helen continued calling Claire during the first few weeks. At first, she accused her. Then she cried. Finally, she remained silent for long stretches during every call, as though she were trying to find words that no longer had the power to control her daughter. Claire did not completely cut her mother off, but she established clear rules. She would not send money to Natalie. She would not lie to investigators. She would not accept responsibility for caring for the children without a legal agreement. And any conversation that turned into criticism or manipulation would end immediately. The first time Claire hung up while Helen was saying that family came first, her hand shook violently. But afterward, the room became quiet. No one died. No disaster occurred. There was only a 34-year-old woman realizing that the fear inside her had been cultivated since childhood. From the time Claire was a little girl, Helen had taught her that love meant sacrifice. Natalie was allowed to make mistakes because she was weak. Claire had to carry the burden because she was strong. The more responsible Claire became, the more responsibility she was given. It was not a compliment. It was a cage painted with beautiful words. Meanwhile, Logan and Chloe gradually settled into their father's home. Vance took them to school every morning, cooked dinner, and read to them before bedtime. During the first few days, Logan repeatedly asked whether his father planned to send them somewhere else. Vance did not make grand promises. He simply kept showing up. Every morning, every evening, every time Chloe had a nightmare. Claire stayed in contact with the children through video calls. When Logan needed extra tutoring, she paid the learning center directly. When Chloe enrolled in an art class, Claire transferred the tuition straight to the school. Claire still loved her niece and nephew, but she no longer turned that love into a doorway through which Natalie could enter and take everything away. One afternoon in Kyoto, Arthur called Claire. He had moved into a small apartment outside the city and was completing the process of separating his finances from Helen. His voice no longer carried its familiar commanding tone. He said he had used the phrase, "family comes first," as a way to force Claire into silence. He admitted that he had seen the unfairness for years, but had chosen to avoid it because Claire always managed to solve everything. Arthur apologized. He offered no excuses. He did not ask his daughter to forgive him immediately. Claire stood outside a wooden temple that was being restored. In front of her, workers were removing rotted beams from the old roof, one piece at a time. They did not paint over the termite damage. They cut away the ruined sections, reinforced the foundation, and replaced them with new materials. Claire watched them for a long time. She understood that a family was much like a building. You could not save a house by covering its cracks. You could not protect family bonds by pretending betrayal had never happened. To rebuild, people had to face the truth, even when the truth made the entire structure tremble. Claire did not know whether Natalie would truly change. She also did not know what would happen to her parents' marriage. But she knew one thing. Setting boundaries with family was not selfish. Sometimes, it was the most honest act of love. Because when Claire stopped rescuing everyone from the consequences of their actions, she did not destroy her family. She simply stopped allowing her family to destroy her. Thank you for following Claire's journey toward freedom, truth, and self-respect. Her story reminds us that love without boundaries can become permission for harmful behavior to continue. Have you ever been pressured by a family member to carry responsibilities that were never yours? Did you walk away, speak up, or keep sacrificing yourself to avoid conflict? Share your thoughts in the comments because your experience may help someone else feel less alone. If this story moved you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear its message, and subscribe for more powerful stories about betrayal, healing, courage, and second chances.